a long time running since my last video. So now that the coronavirus is out, and we're not supposed to mention it, sorry. I have time. So I have a lot of videos that I've been, kind of like keeping in the back of my mind. And this one right here is, I think, something that not a lot of people talk about in the community enough. And I'm not saying we don't talk about it. I'm saying we don't talk about it enough. So first I'm going to quote my boy Tony. To quote Tony, Smash is like a rhythm game. You have to learn your opponent's rhythm. Once you learn the rhythm, you can learn how to beat that rhythm, right? It's like that game where you and me play together and we're cooking food and we have to make sure that it goes plate first, then entree, then you have to put it on the dish or something, right? So there's like a timing to those inputs, right? Smash is like that, and that once you know your opponent's rhythm, then you can beat that person. And this is where damage scaling comes into place. Oh, not damage scaling. I apologize. I have played way too much Dragon Ball Z Fighters lately. And in that game, scaling is damage scaling. This is like Injustice or like Tekken, I think, has even scaling in it, but not as much. So like if I have like a 100 hit combo, like if I hit moves progressively one after the other, like in their combos, those moves do less and less damage overall. You see this in like Mortal Kombat 11 as well, right? This is not what I'm talking about in Smash. What I'm talking about in Smash is skill scaling. Now, I don't know why my video was frozen there for a while, but now we're back on track, right? So what is skill scaling? Skill scaling in Smash is where you have a consistency of usage of attacks, right? And how consistent are they at beating your opponents? And that all relies on the level of skill for your opponent. Is your opponent low skilled, medium mid skilled, or like high tiered skilled? Like, are they? Here's how I think about it. My local PR is like Tampa Bay, right? We have players like Vinny G, Static Manny, Riddier, Lade, right? Like, we have some pretty good players that go out and play. Then you have like CFL, which has like Goblin and Dyer, also known by Aaron these days, right? So like, we're in a pretty decent region, and to be on the PR in this region means, in my opinion, you have high tier skill, right? You've made it to the top of your region, which is a good region, solid region. So that's going to be like high tier scaling. Does what you do your tactics work at that level? So then if I have mid-tier scaling, I'm going to say that beyond the mid-tier, right, for players that are in the high tier, these techniques that you try to employ, these gimmicks, these jank, these little strategies that you try to employ, they stop working at the level above it. So like mid-tier scaling means that these tips and whatever I'm using shouldn't work a lot at high-tier skills, right? So low tier is where we're going to start, right? So just to kind of like reiterate here, right? We have 3 different types of scaling here. We have low tier, mid tier, and high tier. Okay? So let's be aware of the type of scaling that we're using. Is it low, mid, or high tier? Now, I'm telling you that a majority of us get stuck in this game, and this is why it's important, by the way, to know this. A majority of us get stuck at our current skill level because we don't recognize the value of our particular skill set and our strategies that we're using. So what are low tier type scaling moves? All right, that's what I want to talk about first. This is low tier scaling, right? This is something that doesn't work on people who are anything that's not low tier. Okay, here's the most common one. Roll smash. Roll smash. Roll something, right? The rolling is super low tier, right? Like, there comes a point where if you abuse roll too much, it's going to do nothing but like be your worst enemy, because all I have to do one time is just, read your roll, turn around, forward smash. Walk up to you, turn around, down smash. Or just walk up, do something like a down smash straight at you, which has like an option select to it. So that way then Because the next thing that people usually do is, oh, if my rolling doesn't work, I'll start spot dodging. And so then I'll start mixing up my spot dodging and my rolling. So then I can just walk up to you, down smash, charge it. If you spot dodge, I'll just wait for you to come out of it. And if you roll, I'll just immediately let go, and the back of the down smash is going to hit you. Well, then you start doing things like rolling away. But the problem is that your strategy of rolling is you're abusing it too much. And this is the problem with scaling, because the better the strategy, the more you can use it at higher levels. Rolling is a low tier scale. It doesn't scale well at higher levels of play. This is also something that doesn't work at mid to higher levels of play as well. The jump in attack. And it's always the same thing. A full hop, come in, attack. Or it's a full hop, air dodge, come in, attack. Or it's a jump in, attack. Or it's jump in, jump out, come in with an attack. Boom, boom, boom. Right? Like the jump in attacks with the full hops, that's low tier scaling. It turns into mid tier scaling, right? The jump ins, right? When you start like mixing up your double jumps with them. Am I gonna come in? Am I gonna land? Or do I land outside your range? Right? So like this is mid tier scaling. And I'll tell you why later on that turns into high tier scaling, and why it ends at high tier scaling. Or rather, how to turn it to high tier, as opposed to always stay in this mid tier. Just throwing attacks as like short hop, or just randomly throwing out short hops. This is not like a zoning tool where I just throw it out. I know Wolf's forward air is like super good, right? So it comes out like super fast comparatively to like other characters. So I can like do this on you. So like if you jump, or if you try to jump and do anything, I'll immediately catch you first, and then I can like potentially like hit you out of it. Here's another low tier scaling. Oh wait, let's change it up. Oh, hold on, we gotta mix it up. Can't do the same thing every time. Y'all, listen. I understand that camping is a part of this game. Guys, pitch a tent. Do it. Characters like Young Link over here, I'd be pitching tents all day. But here's low tier scaling with Link. I see this all the time. Boomerang, arrow, arrow, boomerang, arrow. Why is this low tier? Because it's the same process every time. Remember what I told you at the beginning of this video? This game is like a rhythm game. If I know my opponent's rhythm, I can beat it. Well, if my opponent always does boomerang, oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was Young Link there for a second. If I was boomerang to bow and arrow, and it's always the same thing, and maybe after that, I notice my opponent always jumps and tries to like forward air after it. So like they do this always. Boomerang, forward air, arrow, forward air. Like, it's a rhythm, right? That's low tier scaling, because it's the same thing every single time. You can even do boomerang, arrow, whatever you want, but it's always action, right? There's always an action, an approaching action, an aggressive option, right? I know that I'm probably at this distance not going to be able to beat that boomerang. So what do I start doing if I'm like a mid-tier, high-tier player? I start going above. I start going a little high, like varying which way I'm going in. Do I go in at the bottom? Do I go in at the top? Right? It starts to turn into mid-tier scaling when your opponent starts doing things like throwing the boomerang into the ground, because then now I can catch these jumps here, right? Now the scaling of skills is different. You're allowing more options. You're planning for more options, but hopefully you're seeing that there's a difference between low-tier scaling and mid-tier scaling. Right? So like right now what I'm talking about is low tier scaling. Right? These are things that happen at the smallest, at the like the weakest of consistent strategies that are going to work. These are strategies that don't work that often at higher levels. Here's another thing that's really low tier. I really don't have to play right now. So it's like really philosophical. So thank you for listening, by the way. Right? Here's another one. When your opponent is always like SDing, or like if your opponent SDs and you're like, oh, I won that one. No. Was that an unforced or forced error? Okay? So low tier scaling are dependent upon unforced errors. Okay? So there's a lot to go with that statement. So when I'm training and I'm getting better, I ask myself, did I force my opponent, or did my opponent get caught by just a bad decision on their end, right? Like, did they just run into it. Like, I see this all the time with like, young links. Just charge it, and I'll run in and punish it, and I'll get hit by the end of it. Right? Because I tried to punish it. Well, that's low tier in terms of strategy. Let me hope that my opponent runs into this smash attack. Okay, I see this with Link all the time, okay? Especially with young Link. Forward smash, immediately up B. Hoping that your opponent gets hit by the random up B. It's not so random after a while, right? After like the first time of getting hit by it, or like first time seeing it, I instantly know as like a mid-high tier player, okay, they're going to try it again. So let me just wait for that to end, and I'll punish that one because it's easier to punish. I'm talking about the up B afterwards, right? I see that all the time. These are unforced errors. Here's another unforced error, right? So like as young Link, you're recovering, right? And you do like one of these. You catch your opponent sleeping at the edge. Now, I'm not saying that that doesn't work. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try it. You should always check your opponent. But if you rely on it consistently, eventually I'm just going to walk up and shield, and I know that's where you're going to end, and I'll just punish that ending. And then if it's at like a low percent, watch out, because then I can do things like this, right? Like I can get like big time damage on you, and that's not even a good combo with Wolf. I should just done something like forward air to down air, and that would have been like super potent. Because after the down air, I could just down air you again. Like that would have been like a game ender. So these are low tier scaling. If I rely on my opponent's unforced errors to win, that is not a way that you are going to get consistent, reliable results. Now, there are low tier and mid tier gimmicks. Now, I don't think that there's many high tier gimmicks. So let's talk about some mid tiers at the moment. So I'm going to change this over to mid tier scaling. These are some strategies that you can use for mid tiers, right? So like this is like when you're past like the F-rated opponent, and this is like when you're trying to play against like the D+ to B- opponents, right? These are players with skill, like they know what they're doing, they're patient, they know how to shield. They show you that they watch you. They like maybe like here's a good one. Let's say you're up on a platform, right? And you're a young Link. Now, what do most players like to do once they like establish themselves as a beginner coming out of low, going into mid-tier type player, right? These are the kids or like the skilled players rather that are like coming up. What do they start showing you? Okay, so like they'll instead of like attacking you like right here on your shield, they're like, wait, they're gonna jump, and so like they go for the jump. So you'll see this all the time. Like, I missed that, I whiffed that. Well, I thought you were gonna jump, right? And because I missed that, now you hit me, right? So like that's something that you have to understand in the moment. Now, if I see my opponent whiff, and I'm young Link, I'm like, all right, I'll punish that whiff right there. I'm gonna start punishing that. I'm gonna start baiting that jump more. So instead of being on the platform, maybe I'll run through the platform. Or I just shield and then wait for them to do something, and then I'll jump out of it, right? I'll wait for them to make the move. Now we're talking mid-tier scaling, waiting for your opponent, right? Like trying to predict based off of evidence that they've already given you. Here's mid-tier, right? Like jumping in and then jumping out, right? Mid-tier, jumping in and then landing behind you and then like grabbing you, acting like I'm going to hit you, right? So like you'll see like Wolf players like spamming this. This is low-tier scaling right here, just spamming back here, right? I see this all the time, just spamming aerials, and it's always the same rhythm. Boom, 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 boom. Remember, this is a rhythm game, so as long as I can plan my approach in between the booms, right, I can beat that tactic. So then, this is what they're doing, right? This is how you know you're playing a decent-sized player. Boom. Gotcha, right? Like, they're mixing up the timing of the booms, and then they're using it with, like, nairs. Let me just throw out some nairs here. I'm going to catch you in your jumps, right? I'm going to show you that I'm watching what you're doing. Now I'm getting you to think about your strategies, right? Roll behind grab, right? Now that's a purposeful roll combined with conditioning and other tactics, right? So this is not the player that always just runs up, rolls behind, down tilts, and then immediately forward tilts after that, right? Because I'm Lucas, right? And that's all I do if I'm Lucas. I get in, down tilt, forward air. And no matter what, my opponent, as long as they do something, they're going to get punished. Well, not entirely, right? Because if I'm Snake, I'll just turn around, up tilt you if you're in death percentage. Or if I'm Wolf, I just turn around, grab you. Or if like I know you already got behind me, like I threw out like a move like this, and as I was throwing it out, you roll behind me. Well, I know you're going to throw out a move, so I just jump out of it, and I just use my shimmy. So shimmy is a mid to high tier scaling, depending upon how much you shimmy. Shimmying is just the basic jump out, right? So like if this Link decides that he's going to up B, I can just jump out of it as Wolf, and now I can punish him, right? This is where, like, I see this all the time. Here's a low tier scaling move. This Link is at, like, let's say this Link is at death percentage, right? This Wolf is just throwing out smashes, throwing out kill moves, like, trying to throw out dash attacks, right? Like, that's low tier scalings, because I know I'm at death percent, right? Let's say I'm young Link here. And I am definitely not at 63. Give me something that I can die at, right? Like 100+%. Something ridiculous where if I get breathed on, I'm going to die. Well, what am I waiting for? See? Now, what can I die from this Wolf? I can die from any smash attack, which means I should not roll into this Wolf, right? I should not jump into this Wolf because low-tier players will just smash. They'll just throw out smashes. They'll just try to neutral air on you, right? They'll try to like they'll run up on you and throw out attack. Throw attack, right? And then they'll even do something like, oh, Wolf's forward tilt has no lag after it, so I'll immediately dash, or I'll immediately forward tilt, or I'll immediately this, or I'll do like this, right? Like, now I know that, once again, that's your gimmick, that's your jank, that's your tactic that you're trying to abuse. Listen, that doesn't scale well, because if I know it's coming, right, if I read your rhythm, which is not that hard to do because a lot of players do this, I'm not going to get hit by it. I don't know why my Elgato keeps freezing on me. This just isn't fun. I'm going to have to figure this one out. Right? Maybe if I change it to this. Nope. It just keeps freezing on me. It's alright. We can work with it. Cool. Right? Like, it's not going to work. So, mid-tier would be something like this. Walk up, and then do like a stutter step. Right? Stutter. Walk up, and then jump over your opponent. Right? You can, like, that's mid-tier. Okay, like, that's something that you can employ that's a little bit more iffy. Like, I'm not going to rely on just smash attack. I'm going to rely on getting behind you. Here's another mid-tier. Here's another low-tier scaling, actually. Roll behind, because I know what one of Wolf's kill throws is his back throw. So he has to roll behind me in order to get the back throw on Young Link. Now, mid to high level players will know this. Low tier players won't know this, which is why it works. Oh, he's looking for a back throw, so let me watch out for the roll behind grab. Right? Like, they don't know to watch out for this stuff, or they're not actively watching out for it because the game is still new for them. That makes it low tier. Because it doesn't work on mid-tier, once again, because the mid-tier players are looking for it. So now how do I change that into a high-tier tactic, right? So, like, what makes something a high-tier tactic? And this is the essence of offense, right here. This is why it's important, because the number one offense of this game is a lie. How can I lie to my opponent? They know I'm looking for this. I'm playing against an opponent like Zero who's really good at what he does, and trust me, I've played him, and I've learned all this from him, right? He's so good. He has been exposed to every situation, and he's got the reaction on call for every situation, and he's most of the time correct. So you have to force him into an error, and that's what makes something high tier. When you are forcing your opponent into a decision that is the wrong decision, that is beneficial for you, right? So this is something like with Wolf, where I've set up, like, oh, I'm going to land behind you, tomahawk you, or like, I'll wait for you to throw an attack, roll behind, right? Or like, I'll throw out something like a down tilt, turn away, or like a dash away, dash in, and I'll grab a whiffed attack. That's like mid-tier, right? So here's what I can do. I land on you, if we get this length of shield, right? If I land on you with like an ambiguous move, so like, I'm doing like this little short hop motion, I can land on you, I can nair in front of you, or I can nair behind you on shield. And if you predict wrong, and if you don't react properly, I can grab you if I landed behind you, or if I landed in front of you and you try to roll out or jump out, I immediately got you with like an up tilt afterwards. So like a landing on shield with like something that's ambiguous is a high tier scaling. It's hard to react to, it's quick, it's fast. These are things like tech chasing, right? I know that at certain opponents, or certain percentages, if I pull off like a neutral air with Wolf, it leads to a tech chase situation, right? So now I'm taking out, like right there, that was a tech situation. That computer could have teched. Now if I know my opponent is really good at teching, now I'm like, alright, this is, like, the low tier is always this, neutral air to like dash attack, right? Because that's what they always do at those percentages, right? That's low tier scaling. If I'm a mid-tier player, I know what the proper reaction to this is, right? And the proper reaction There's a tech. I'm trying to do this with 2 hands, right? I can tech it. Oh my god. I'm gonna tech it. Try it again. Oh, I almost had it if it didn't go off the stage. Right? Anyways, the proper way to react to it at a mid-tier level is like teching. So I know to beat that dash attack with teching. But now, once again, what happens when I have now improved as a player and I realize that there are tech chases available? This makes the neutral air to tech chasing a mid-tier scaling move, right? It's still the same setup. Nair to tech something, right? Do they not tech it? They're low. They're bad players. Man, here's another thing too with bad players. If they don't tech that situation, oh my god, like that's a free kill like every time. That's what Wolf's looking for. Now Wolf does same thing with Fox, right? Fox has like neutral air to up smash. That is a low, mid, and high tier scaling move. In the way that you use it, in the way that you alter your rhythm, your flow of the game. Do you always land with neutral air? Do you always come off a platform into like a back air? Now, that's a mid-tier scale if that's something that you always do, run off back air, right? What if you run off B reverse or something like that? So like Link does this all the time, right? Like as Snake, B reverse, and then maybe they overshoot you because they didn't, you know, predict something. Or like you run off and then you double jump over it. Or you fake like you're about to run off and then you jump and then like land behind the platform. Or instead you're like, man, I'm just trying to stay safe. I'm just gonna like jump at the edge of this platform and I'm gonna like, oh, Sight, you don't know where I'm gonna go, right? Oh. Now you're like, oh, you're camping me. No, I'm just trying to space you properly. I'm trying to get into a situation that's going to be okay for me to come in, because if you always punish this right here, like a young Link will like throw like boomerangs in this spot. So like I have to like run up parry or like run up, drop down, like try to force them to like pause their momentum, like throw a laser out, right? Like that would pause their reactions, right? Like that's now changing the game flow. So like that's how something goes from mid to high tier scaling, is when it changes the flow of the game and it changes the predictive outcome. It's lying to your opponent. Okay, so that's as basic as I can get with scaling. And now listen, I'm gonna put like a disclaimer. This does not apply to everybody on everything. There are some strategies out there that are that good, like Meta Knight's up B into glide and brawl was high tier because it had so many mix-ups. There are very few of those strategies in this game that have like high tier, just right off the rip, it leads to high tier stuff, right? Like, and I'm gonna say like the most obvious one, it might be a surprise to you, is Diddy Kong's banana. He pulls it out, he gets in front of you, he sits right here at this banana, he's waiting for you to do something. That's high tier. There's so many options out of it, and it's really easy to learn how to just start doing. But Diddy has a lot of other things that give him like a high tier. Like he's a hard character to learn how to use, but banana setups are really high tier. You know what I'm saying? Like there are strategies like that out there, so take this with a grain of salt. Other than that, this is my first video in a long time. I hope you enjoyed it. So yeah, peace out, guys.